The beginning of Sumerian civilization around 3500 BC is one of history's biggest mysteries. Unlike other ancient cultures that slowly developed their technology and society over time, the Sumerians suddenly appeared in history with a fully developed complex society. They already had advanced writing systems, complex math, and detailed religious organizations. This sudden appearance has caused many years of debate among scholars and different theories about where human civilization really came from. Digging projects at important Mesopotamian sites, especially Uruk, Eridu, and Nippur, have found layers of evidence that challenge what we normally understand about how cultures develop. At Uruk, often called the world's first true city, archaeologists discovered huge temple buildings from 3200 BC that show building knowledge far beyond what should have been possible for a supposedly new civilization. The White Temple, standing on top of a 40-foot ziggurat, used precise math calculations for weight distribution and had advanced drainage systems that wouldn't be seen again in human construction for thousands of years. The complexity goes beyond just buildings. Cuneiform tablets found in the earliest layers of these sites contain math concepts that include positional notation, advanced astronomical calculations, and geometric principles. The Sumerians knew about the precession of equinoxes, a 25,920-year cycle that requires centuries of careful observation to detect. They calculated the length of a year as 365 days, 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 3 seconds, remarkably close to our modern measurement of 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. What makes these discoveries especially interesting is the absence of developmental stages. Most civilizations show clear progress from simple tools to complex instruments, from basic shelters to elaborate buildings, from pictographs to advanced writing. The Sumerian record lacks these transitional phases. The earliest tablets contain complex legal codes, detailed astronomical observations, and intricate religious texts, as if the knowledge appeared fully formed. The Sumerian king list, discovered on multiple tablets and prisms throughout Mesopotamia, provides perhaps the most mysterious evidence of unusual origins. This ancient document, compiled around 2100 BC but referencing much earlier periods, begins with the striking statement, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years." The text continues with a series of rulers whose reigns spanned tens of thousands of years, creating a timeline that extends far beyond normal human lifespans. The king list divides history into distinct periods before the flood and after the flood. The antediluvian rulers are credited with impossibly long reigns. Lulunga ruled for 36,000 years, Dumuzid the shepherd for 36,000 years, and Imeluana for 21,000 years. These figures aren't isolated mistakes or scribal errors, as they appear consistently across multiple versions of the text found at different sites and dating to different periods. The phrase "kingship descended from heaven" appears repeatedly throughout early Sumerian texts, suggesting that political authority and knowledge came from divine sources, rather than human development. This concept is so thoroughly part of Sumerian culture that it appears in administrative documents, religious hymns, and legal codes. The consistency of this theme across diverse text types indicates it wasn't merely mythological, but represented a fundamental belief about this source. The civilization itself. Technological achievements in early Sumerian society further complicate the picture of gradual human development. Metallurgical analysis of artifacts from Ur reveals advanced alloying techniques that created bronze with precise copper-tin ratios optimized for specific applications. Weapons contain different alloy compositions than tools, indicating advanced understanding of metallurgical properties. The Sumerians produced steel implements 2,000 years before steel technology supposedly developed elsewhere. Their astronomical knowledge proves equally remarkable. Sumerian tablets describe the solar system with startling accuracy, including references to planets not visible to the naked eye. The Molopin tablets, dating to around 1000 BC but containing much older astronomical data, list 18 paths followed by celestial bodies, and describe planetary movements with mathematical precision. These texts reference Nibiru, described as a planet with an elongated orbit that brings it into the inner solar system every 3,600 years. Mathematical achievements include the development of the sexagesimal system, which we still use for measuring time and angles. This system allows for calculations involving complex fractions and astronomical measurements with remarkable precision. The Plimpton 322 tablet demonstrates knowledge of Pythagorean triples more than 1,000 years before Pythagoras, suggesting mathematical concepts that required sophisticated abstract thinking. Eridu Genesis, one of the earliest creation accounts known to humanity, provides crucial insight into Sumerian beliefs about civilization's origins. Unlike later creation myths that focus on cosmic events, the Eridu Genesis specifically describes the establishment of human society through divine intervention. The text states that the gods planned the land and placed the first city, Eridu, as a gift. It describes divine beings teaching humans fundamental skills including agriculture, animal husbandry, and craftsmanship. The narrative presents civilization as a deliberate gift rather than a gradual human achievement. Divine beings called the Anunnaki are credited with establishing the first cities, teaching agricultural techniques, and providing the knowledge necessary for complex society. The text describes how these beings came down from heaven and made their dwelling among men, establishing temples as centers of learning and governance. Archaeological evidence supports aspects of these ancient accounts. Excavations at Eridu revealed that the site was continuously occupied for over 4,000 years, with the earliest levels containing sophisticated pottery, advanced irrigation systems, and complex architectural remains. The progression of building phases shows not gradual improvement, but rather an initial period of advanced construction, followed by later periods of decline and rebuilding. The temple complexes at these early sites demonstrate architectural knowledge that seems incongruent with the supposed technological level of the time. The foundations of the Eridu temple extend deep into the earth with precise engineering that accounts for soil subsidence and seasonal flooding. The construction incorporates mathematical ratios found in later classical architecture, suggesting knowledge of principles that wouldn't be rediscovered for millennia. Irrigation systems throughout early Sumerian territory show similar sophistication. The network of canals, levees, and reservoirs required precise surveying techniques and understanding of hydraulic engineering. These systems efficiently distributed water across thousands of square miles, supporting population densities that wouldn't be achieved again in the region until modern times. The mathematical calculations required for such projects demonstrate advanced understanding of engineering principles. The Sumerian pantheon, as described in numerous religious texts, presents a hierarchical organization of divine beings with specific roles and responsibilities. The Anunnaki are consistently portrayed as the primary divine council, numbering 50 according to most sources, with 7 supreme members who decree the fates. These beings are described as having human-like appearance, but possessing knowledge and capabilities far beyond human limitations. Religious texts describe the Anunnaki as arriving from a distant realm and establishing civilization as part of a larger cosmic plan. The Epic of Atrahasis details how these beings created humans to serve as workers, providing them with knowledge necessary for agriculture, construction, and governance. The text describes a golden age when gods and humans lived in close proximity, with divine beings serving as rulers and teachers. The consistency of these accounts across multiple independent sources suggests they represent more than mere mythology. Administrative texts from various Sumerian cities reference the Anunnaki in matter-of-fact terms, listing offerings made to specific members and describing their roles in governance. Legal documents invoke their authority, and astronomical texts reference their celestial associations. Translation work on thousands of cuneiform tablets continues to reveal new details about Sumerian beliefs regarding divine intervention in human affairs. Recent discoveries include tablets describing advanced medical procedures, detailed astronomical observations, and sophisticated mathematical calculations that challenge assumptions about ancient capabilities. The texts consistently attribute this knowledge to divine instruction rather than human discovery. The technological gap between Sumerian achievements and those of surrounding cultures provides additional evidence for unusual origins. While neighboring societies remained largely agricultural with simple tools and basic social structures, the Sumerians developed complex urban centers with specialized crafts, elaborate trade networks, and sophisticated administrative systems. This disparity suggests external influence rather than natural cultural evolution. Genetic studies of ancient Mesopotamian populations have revealed interesting anomalies that correlate with these historical puzzles. DNA analysis of remains from early Sumerian sites shows genetic markers that don't clearly connect to surrounding populations, suggesting either significant migration from unknown sources or genetic influences that current science cannot fully explain. These findings align with Sumerian texts that describe their ancestors as coming from distant lands or having divine origins. The linguistic foundations of our understanding of the Anunnaki begin with the careful analysis of Akkadian and Sumerian cuneiform texts, where the term itself emerges from the compound Anunnaki, literally translating to offspring of Anu, or more expansively interpreted as those who from heaven to earth came. This etymology proves crucial because it establishes the fundamental concept that these beings originated from a celestial realm and descended to terrestrial domains. The Akkadian adaptation of the Sumerian original demonstrates how the concept evolved across Mesopotamian cultures, while maintaining its core meaning of divine beings with heavenly origins, who became intimately involved in earthly affairs. The term underwent subtle but significant modifications as it passed through different Mesopotamian civilizations. In early Sumerian texts from around 2600 BC, the cuneiform signs for Anunnaki appear with consistent frequency in administrative records from Nippur and Ur, suggesting these weren't mythological constructs, but entities recognized within the practical governance structure of these cities. The Old Babylonian period saw the term acquire additional connotations, with scribes adding determinative signs that classified the Anunnaki specifically as divine beings, rather than human rulers or abstract concepts. Akkadian translations from the 2nd millennium BC reveal fascinating linguistic nuances. The term Ulani Shamudim appears frequently in parallel with Anunnaki references, meaning gods of heaven and earth, which reinforces the dual nature of these beings as entities capable of operating in both celestial and terrestrial spheres. The consistency of this dual-realm description across thousands of tablets from different cities and time periods indicates a shared understanding of the Anunnaki's nature that transcended local variations in religious practice. The Enuma Elish, the creation epic preserved on 7 tablets discovered primarily at Nineveh in Ashurbanipal's library, provides the most comprehensive account of the Anunnaki's role in establishing cosmic and earthly order. The epic begins with the primordial waters of Asu and Tiamat, from which emerged the first generations of gods. The text describes how Anu, the sky god, emerges as the supreme authority among the younger generation of deities, establishing the hierarchical structure that would govern both divine and human realms. Anu's role in the Enuma Elish extends beyond simple rulership. The text describes him as the father of the gods who possesses the tablets of destiny, granting him authority over fate itself. The 4th tablet specifically mentions how Anu fixed the stations for the celestial bodies, establishing the astronomical order that governs earthly seasons and agricultural cycles. This connection between divine authority and cosmic organization appears consistently throughout Mesopotamian literature, suggesting the Anunnaki were understood to be responsible for maintaining universal order through precise celestial mechanics. Enlil, described as Anu's son and heir, receives dominion over the atmosphere and Earth's surface. The Enuma Elish portrays Enlil as the active administrator of divine will, the deity who implements decisions made in the celestial council. Tablet 5 describes how Enlil organized the year and appointed the months, establishing the calendar systems that became fundamental to Mesopotamian civilization. The text credits Enlil with creating the agricultural seasons and teaching humans the proper timing for planting and harvesting, knowledge that required sophisticated understanding of astronomical cycles. The epic presents Enlil's authority as extending over all terrestrial affairs, including the establishment of human settlements and the distribution of divine knowledge. Administrative texts from Nippur, Enlil's primary cult center, contain detailed records of offerings and rituals that suggest the temple served as more than a religious site. Archaeological evidence indicates the temple complex included workshops for metallurgy, textile production, and astronomical observation, supporting the textual evidence that divine beings were directly involved in teaching practical skills to human populations. The, also known as Enki in Sumerian texts, represents the 3rd member of the supreme Anunnaki triad. The Enuma Elish describes he as the wise one among the gods, possessing knowledge of crafts, magic, and the secrets of creation. Tablet 6 details how he creates humans from clay mixed with the blood of the slain god Kingu, imbuing humanity with divine essence, while maintaining their mortal limitations. This creation account differs significantly from other ancient creation myths by emphasizing the deliberate transfer of divine knowledge to human beings. His domain encompasses the subterranean waters and the secrets hidden beneath the earth's surface. Sumerian hymns describe him as the keeper of the fundamental principles that govern civilization, including kingship, priesthood, craftsmanship, and warfare. The distribution of these divine principles to human cities forms a recurring theme in Mesopotamian literature, with each major urban center receiving specific aspects of civilized knowledge from E's vast repository. The Epic of Gilgamesh, preserved in multiple versions across nearly 2 millennia, provides crucial insights into the nature of divine-human interactions and the Anunnaki's ongoing involvement in earthly affairs. The standard version, compiled during the Neo-Assyrian period but containing much older material, presents divine beings as active participants in human history, rather than distant creators who abandoned their creation. The epic's portrayal of divine beings reveals complex personalities and motivations that distinguish them from abstract theological concepts. Shamash, the sun god and member of the Anunnaki Council, appears as Gilgamesh's divine patron, providing guidance and protection throughout the hero's adventures. The text describes Shamash as possessing detailed knowledge of future events and the ability to manipulate natural phenomena to assist or hinder human endeavors. Ishtar's role in the epic demonstrates the Anunnaki's capacity for both benevolence and destructive anger. Her proposal to Gilgamesh and subsequent rage at his rejection leads to the release of the Bull of Heaven, a catastrophic event that requires divine intervention to resolve. This episode illustrates the Anunnaki's power over natural disasters and their willingness to use such power in response to personal affronts, suggesting these beings possessed emotional characteristics similar to humans despite their superior capabilities. The flood narrative within the Epic of Gilgamesh provides remarkable parallels to later flood accounts, while offering unique insights into the Anunnaki's decision-making processes. Utnapishtim's account describes how Enlil decides to destroy humanity through a great flood, but he secretly warns Utnapishtim to build an ark and preserve life. This internal conflict among the Anunnaki reveals disagreement within the Divine Council about humanity's fate and suggests individual members could act independently of collective decisions. The flood account includes specific technical details about the ark's construction that demonstrate advanced engineering knowledge. Utnapishtim describes using bitumen for waterproofing, precise measurements for the vessel's dimensions, and sophisticated techniques for ensuring structural integrity during the flood. The text attributes this knowledge to ease direct instruction, reinforcing the theme of divine beings providing technical expertise to selected humans. Administrative and religious texts from major Mesopotamian cities provide extensive catalogues of the Anunnaki pantheon and their assigned earthly domains. The Temple Hymn Collection, attributed to the High Priestess Enheduanna around 2300 BC, lists temples throughout Mesopotamia and identifies the specific Anunnaki members associated with each location. These texts reveal a systematic organization of divine authority that mirrors the political structure of Mesopotamian city-states. Records from Nippur, considered the religious center of Mesopotamia, contain detailed inventories of the Anunnaki hierarchy. The texts identify 50 great gods with 7 supreme members who form the inner council. Each member receives specific titles and areas of responsibility. Anu oversees cosmic order, Enlil manages atmospheric phenomena, and earthly governance controls subterranean waters, and wisdom Ninhursag governs fertility and childbirth. Nana regulates lunar cycles. Udu administers solar functions and justice, and Inanna manages warfare and sexuality. Babylonian temple records provide extensive documentation of rituals and offerings directed towards specific Anunnaki members. These texts reveal that divine beings were understood to require regular sustenance and attention, suggesting they maintained physical presence rather than existing as abstract spiritual entities. The detailed descriptions of food offerings, clothing, and ceremonial objects indicate the Anunnaki were perceived as having material needs similar to human rulers. The canonical temple list from Babylon catalogues over 600 temples throughout Mesopotamia, each associated with specific Anunnaki members and their designated functions. The systematic organization reveals how divine authority was distributed across geographical regions, with each city receiving particular aspects of divine knowledge and protection. This distribution pattern suggests careful planning rather than random religious development. Er's administrative archives contain thousands of tablets documenting the practical aspects of divine service. These records include inventories of temple workshops, lists of specialized craftsmen, and detailed accounts of resource allocation for divine projects. The texts describe temple complexes as centers of technological innovation, where divine beings supervise the development of new techniques in metallurgy, astronomy, and engineering. The Dreham archive, discovered near Nippur, contains records of a massive livestock operation that supplied animals for sacrificial rituals throughout Mesopotamia. The systematic organization of this operation, involving thousands of cattle, sheep, and goats, demonstrates the scale of resources dedicated to maintaining divine favor. The text suggests the Anunnaki required substantial material support to maintain their earthly presence and activities. New Babylonian astronomical texts reveal the sophisticated mathematical knowledge attributed to divine instruction. The Molopin series describes planetary movements with remarkable precision, including calculations for retrograde motion and orbital periods that required centuries of careful observation to develop. The texts consistently credit this astronomical knowledge to divine revelation rather than human discovery, maintaining the tradition of Anunnaki involvement in advanced learning. Ritual texts from various periods describe ceremonies designed to maintain communication between human and divine realms. The Akitu festival, celebrated annually in Babylon, included elaborate rituals that symbolically renewed the cosmic order established by the Anunnaki. The detailed procedure suggests these ceremonies were understood as necessary for maintaining the stability of both natural and social systems. The geographic distribution of Anunnaki worship reveals patterns that extend far beyond Mesopotamia proper. Texts from Anatolia, Syria, and Iran reference Mesopotamian divine names and concepts, suggesting the influence of Anunnaki-based religious systems spread throughout the ancient Near East. This widespread adoption indicates the practical effectiveness of Mesopotamian religious and administrative systems, rather than mere cultural borrowing. The transition from divine presence to divine absence represents one of the most profound shifts documented in ancient Mesopotamian literature. Unlike the gradual decline of religious influence seen in other civilizations, Sumerian and Babylonian texts describe a deliberate and systematic withdrawal of the Anunnaki from direct human affairs. This departure wasn't a mythological abstraction, but appears to have been recorded as historical fact by scribes who witnessed or inherited accounts of actual events. The most comprehensive documentation of this divine withdrawal appears in the Lament for Sumer and Ur, a 436-line poem composed around 2000 BC, during the collapse of the Ur III dynasty. The text presents itself not as mythology, but as an eyewitness account of catastrophic events that destroyed the political and religious order that had governed Mesopotamia for over a millennium. The poem's opening lines establish the scope of the disaster. The good day has been carried off. The city weeps bitter tears. The day of well-being has been carried off in this storm. The lament describes a systematic abandonment of major Sumerian cities by their patron deities. Enlil, the supreme administrator of earthly affairs, is described as departing from Nippur, with specific details about the physical removal of divine objects and the cessation of temple activities. The text states that Enlil has abandoned his dwelling, and the divine plans have been altered. The poem provides precise descriptions of empty temples, silent oracle chambers, and abandoned ritual. Implements that suggest actual observation rather than poetic imagination. The abandonment of Ur receives particularly detailed treatment in the lament. Nana, the moon god who served as Ur's patron deity, is described as departing despite the desperate pleas of his human servants. The text records specific conversations between divine beings, revealing internal discussions about the decision to withdraw from human civilization. Nana's departure is portrayed as reluctant but inevitable, suggesting external pressures or predetermined cosmic cycles that compel the divine withdrawal. The poem describes the physical manifestations of divine departure with startling specificity. Temple fires are extinguished, sacred barges are emptied of their divine passengers, and the elaborate ceremonies that maintain divine-human communication cease abruptly. The text mentions that the divine boat of Anu has been submerged, and the sacred barge of Enlil has been carried away by the flood. These references to divine transportation suggest the Anunnaki possessed physical means of travel that were removed along with their personal presence. Archaeological evidence from Ur corroborates many details described in the lament. Excavations reveal a distinct layer of abandonment around 2000 BC, where temple activities ceased abruptly. Ritual objects were left in place as if their users simply disappeared, and construction projects were abandoned mid-completion. The royal cemetery shows evidence of hasty burials and the rapid interment of valuable objects, suggesting a crisis that required immediate action, rather than gradual decline. The lament's description of environmental catastrophes accompanying divine departure provides crucial insights into the relationship between Anunnaki presence and natural stability. The text describes storms that covered the land like a garment, floods that swept away the established order, and agricultural failures that led to widespread famine. The correlation between divine withdrawal and natural disasters suggests the Anunnaki's presence served practical functions in maintaining environmental stability rather than purely ceremonial roles. Babylonian texts from the subsequent period elaborate on the themes introduced in the Sumerian lament. The Ur epic, composed during the early 1st millennium BC, describes divine anger and the deliberate destruction of human civilization as punishment for unspecified transgressions. The epic presents Ur, a god of plague and warfare, convincing Marduk to abandon Babylon temporarily, resulting in chaos and destruction throughout the land. The Ur epic provides detailed descriptions of the decision-making process that led to divine withdrawal. The text describes council meetings among the Anunnaki where members debate humanity's worthiness and the practical challenges of continued direct involvement in human affairs. Marduk's reluctance to abandon his earthly responsibilities contrasts with Ur's enthusiasm for destruction, revealing tensions within the divine hierarchy about the appropriate relationship with human civilization. The epic's portrayal of divine anger differs significantly from arbitrary wrath found in other ancient literature. The Anunnaki's decision to withdraw appears based on specific violations of agreements or cosmic principles, rather than capricious mood changes. The text references broken covenants and forgotten obligations that suggest formal agreements between divine beings and human leaders had been violated, necessitating the termination of direct divine involvement. Babylonian astronomical texts provide additional evidence for the systematic nature of divine withdrawal. The Venus tablet of Amisaduqa records precise observations of planetary movements during the period when divine presence allegedly diminished. The mathematical calculations required for these observations demonstrate continued access to advanced astronomical knowledge, even as direct divine contact decreased. This suggests the Anunnaki provided certain types of knowledge that could be preserved and transmitted even during their physical absence. The tablet's references to the departure of Ishtar correlate with specific astronomical phenomena, particularly the periods when Venus disappears from view during superior conjunction. The text describes these disappearances as temporary withdrawals that follow predictable patterns, suggesting divine departures might be governed by celestial cycles, rather than arbitrary decisions. The correlation between astronomical events and divine presence implies the Anunnaki's activities were synchronized with cosmic rhythms that extended beyond earthly concerns. Calendrical systems throughout Mesopotamia underwent significant modifications during the period of divine withdrawal. The standard 360-day year was adjusted to accommodate the actual solar year of 365.25 days, suggesting the loss of direct divine guidance in maintaining temporal accuracy. Administrative texts from Babylon described the implementation of intercalary months and complex adjustment procedures that became necessary when divine oversight of calendrical systems ceased. The mathematical complexity of these calendrical adjustments reveals sophisticated understanding of astronomical principles that survived the period of divine withdrawal. Scribal schools in Babylon and Borsippa maintained detailed records of planetary movements, eclipse cycles, and seasonal variations that enabled accurate timekeeping, despite the absence of direct divine instruction. These records suggest the Anunnaki provided comprehensive educational systems that could function independently during periods of reduced divine presence. New Babylonian texts describe attempts to restore divine presence through elaborate ritual procedures and architectural projects. The reconstruction of Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar II included specific modifications designed to accommodate returning divine beings. The Ishtar Gate and processional way were constructed according to precise mathematical specifications that supposedly corresponded to divine requirements for earthly habitation. The detailed architectural plans for these reconstruction projects reveal sophisticated knowledge of acoustic engineering, astronomical alignments, and sacred geometry that suggests continued access to divine technical specifications. The builders incorporated complex mathematical ratios and celestial orientations that required advanced understanding of both engineering and astronomy. These projects represent massive investments of resources and labor based on the expectation that proper construction could induce divine return. Temple abandonment patterns throughout Mesopotamia follow geographical and chronological sequences that suggest coordinated withdrawal rather than random decline. Archaeological surveys reveal that northern temples were abandoned first, followed by central Mesopotamian sites, with southern temples maintaining activity longest. This pattern corresponds to descriptions in various laments and historical texts that describe the Anunnaki's departure as proceeding from north to south over a period of several decades. The systematic nature of temple abandonment is particularly evident at sites like Assur and Mary, where excavations reveal deliberate removal of sacred objects and careful sealing of ritual chambers. Unlike destruction caused by warfare or natural disasters, these sites show evidence of organized evacuation, with valuable items removed and important texts preserved for future recovery. The care taken in these abandonments suggests the departures were planned rather than emergency evacuations. Religious texts from the Neo-Assyrian period describe attempts to reverse divine withdrawal through increasingly elaborate rituals and offerings. The Tukulu texts detail month-long ceremonies designed to persuade absent deities to resume their earthly residence. These rituals required massive quantities of precious materials, hundreds of participants, and complex choreographed procedures that consumed enormous resources without achieving their intended goals. The failure of these restoration attempts is documented in administrative texts that record declining temple revenues and reduced participation in religious festivals. Royal inscriptions from the later Assyrian period acknowledged the ineffectiveness of traditional rituals in restoring divine presence, leading to modifications in religious practice that emphasized human agency rather than divine intervention. The geographical distribution of divine withdrawal correlates with specific astronomical observations recorded in various Mesopotamian archives. Sites associated with particular Anunnaki members were abandoned when their corresponding celestial bodies reached specific positions or completed certain cycles. The Temple of Nana-Adar was abandoned during a period of unusual lunar phenomena, while solar temples throughout Mesopotamia ceased operations during a documented period of solar eclipse activity. These correlations suggest divine departures were synchronized with celestial events that followed predictable patterns. The mathematical precision required to calculate these correlations demonstrates sophisticated astronomical knowledge that survived the period of divine withdrawal. Scribal schools maintain detailed ephemeris tables that track planetary positions decades into the future, enabling accurate prediction of celestial events associated with divine activities. Late Babylonian texts describe the establishment of substitute systems designed to maintain social order during divine absence. Professional divination became increasingly important as direct divine communication ceased, with elaborate procedures developed for interpreting omens and signs. The Bearer series comprises over 100 tablets detailing divination techniques that replace direct divine consultation. Administrative texts reveal the development of human bureaucratic systems that assumed responsibilities previously managed by divine beings. Legal codes became more complex and detailed as human judges replaced divine arbitration. Agricultural management required new techniques for predicting weather patterns and seasonal variations without direct divine guidance. These adaptations demonstrate remarkable human ingenuity in maintaining civilization, despite the loss of divine oversight. The economic impact of divine withdrawal appears in accounting texts that document declining agricultural productivity and reduced trade activity. Temple workshops that had served as centers of technological innovation ceased operations, leading to the loss of specialized knowledge in metallurgy, textile production, and other crafts. The texts describe efforts to preserve technical knowledge through written manuals and training programs that replace direct divine instruction. Archaeological evidence supports textual accounts of economic decline during the period of divine withdrawal. Excavations reveal reduced construction activity, simpler manufacturing techniques, and decreased long-distance trade. The quality of craftsmanship declined markedly in pottery, metalwork, and textile production, as divine guidance in technical matters became unavailable. Persian period texts describe the gradual transformation of Mesopotamian religion from active divine presence to symbolic representation. The Cyrus cylinder acknowledges the absence of traditional divine beings, while claiming divine sanction for Persian rule through abstract concepts of cosmic justice. This transformation represents a fundamental shift from the concrete divine presence described in earlier Mesopotamian texts to the more abstract theological concepts that characterized later religious systems. The documentation of divine withdrawal in Mesopotamian texts provides unique insights into the practical consequences of losing direct contact with advanced beings who had previously guided human civilization. The detailed account suggests these departures represented historical events rather than mythological developments, with specific dates, locations, and circumstances preserved in multiple independent sources. The consistency of these accounts across different cities and time periods indicates shared experiences of actual divine withdrawal, rather than parallel mythological developments. The systematic withdrawal of the Anunnaki from direct human affairs did not mark the end of their influence on Mesopotamian civilization. Instead, it initiated a complex period where divine communication shifted from direct presence to prophetic warnings embedded within literary and religious texts. These warnings, carefully preserved in temple archives and royal libraries across the ancient Near East, contain detailed descriptions of future divine interventions and the conditions that would herald the return of the ancient powers. The Mardi prophecy, discovered among the tablets of Ashurbanipal's library at Nineveh, represents one of the most significant apocalyptic texts from ancient Mesopotamia, dating to approximately the 12th century BC, but containing much older material. This prophecy describes a cyclical pattern of divine departure and return that governs the fate of Babylon and, by extension, human civilization. The text begins with Marduk's declaration that he will abandon his city due to human transgressions. But crucially, it establishes specific conditions for his eventual return. The prophecy describes 3 distinct periods of divine absence, each lasting several centuries, and characterized by specific political and environmental conditions. The first period corresponds to the Assyrian domination of Babylon, described in the text as the time when the north wind shall blow harsh upon the land. The prophecy provides detailed descriptions of the political upheavals that will accompany this period, including the destruction of temple complexes and the cessation of traditional religious festivals. More significantly, the Marduk prophecy establishes astronomical markers for each phase of divine absence and return. The text references specific celestial configurations that must occur before Marduk can resume his earthly residence. These include the completion of certain planetary cycles, particular arrangements of constellations, and the occurrence of specific eclipse patterns. The mathematical precision required to calculate these astronomical events demonstrates sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics that extends far beyond the observational capabilities of ancient Mesopotamian astronomers. The prophecy's description of the final return period includes disturbing details about global catastrophes that will precede divine re-establishment. The text describes mountains that shall move from their places and waters that shall rise above their appointed bounds. These geological and hydrological disasters are presented not as divine punishment, but as necessary cosmic adjustments that must occur before the restoration of proper divine-human relationships. Archaeological evidence from Babylon supports several predictions contained in the Marduk prophecy. Excavations reveal multiple destruction and reconstruction phases that correspond to the cyclical pattern described in the text. The Neo-Babylonian reconstruction under Nebuchadnezzar II included specific architectural modifications that appear designed to accommodate the prophesied return, including enlarged temple complexes and modified ceremonial spaces that exceed the requirements for contemporary religious practices. The dynastic prophecy, preserved on tablets from both Babylon and Sippar, provides complementary information about divine intervention in human political affairs. Unlike the Marduk prophecy's focus on religious restoration, this text concentrates on the establishment of new political orders that will govern humanity during periods of renewed divine presence. The prophecy describes a succession of rulers who will arise under direct divine guidance, each possessing knowledge and capabilities that exceed normal human limitations. The text provides detailed descriptions of these future rulers' characteristics and accomplishments. They're described as possessing wisdom that surpasses the learned scribes, and strength that exceeds the mightiest warriors. The prophecy indicates these rulers will demonstrate technological capabilities that will astonish their contemporaries, including the ability to construct buildings that reach toward heaven, and to create devices that harness the power of the storm. The dynastic prophecy establishes specific genealogical requirements for these future rulers, describing bloodlines that trace back to the original divine-human interactions of the early Sumerian period. The text suggests that certain human lineages preserve genetic characteristics that enable direct communication with divine beings, and that these bloodlines will be activated during periods of renewed divine presence. Administrative texts from various Mesopotamian cities contain genealogical records that appear designed to track these specific lineages across multiple generations. The prophecy's description of technological restoration includes references to knowledge that was hidden in the depths of the earth and preserved in chambers beneath the temple foundations. Archaeological investigations at major Mesopotamian sites have revealed extensive underground complexes that may correspond to these prophetic references. Excavations beneath the Esagila Temple in Babylon uncovered sealed chambers containing tablets with advanced mathematical and astronomical calculations that exceed the known capabilities of contemporary scribes. The Enuma Annual series, comprising over 70 tablets of astrological omens and celestial observations, contains numerous references to cosmic signs that will herald significant divine interventions. These texts describe specific astronomical configurations that serve as warnings of impending divine activity, including planetary alignments, comet appearances, and unusual stellar phenomena. The mathematical precision of these predictions suggests access to astronomical knowledge that required centuries of systematic observation to develop. Tablet 63 of the series describes a particular planetary configuration involving Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn that occurs approximately every 516 years. The text associates this alignment with the time of great decisions when divine beings will descend from their distant dwelling to judge the works of humanity. The calculations required to predict these alignments demonstrate sophisticated understanding of planetary orbital mechanics that wouldn't be matched by European astronomers until the Renaissance period. The series includes detailed descriptions of comet appearances that correlate with periods of significant historical change throughout Mesopotamian history. The text describes specific orbital characteristics, brightness variations, and duration of visibility that enable accurate prediction of these celestial events. The association of particular comets with divine activity suggests these astronomical phenomena served as scheduled signals for predetermined interventions, rather than random omens. Lunar eclipse predictions in the Enuma Annual series demonstrate remarkable accuracy, with calculations that correctly predict eclipse visibility, duration, and magnitude centuries in advance. The text associates specific types of lunar eclipses with different categories of divine activity. Total eclipses are described as heralding the awakening of the sleeping gods, while partial eclipses signal the preparation of divine councils. The systematic correlation between eclipse characteristics and divine activity suggests a complex communication system based on astronomical events. Solar phenomena receive equally detailed treatment in the Omen series. The texts describe various types of solar eclipses, aurora displays, and sunspot activity with scientific precision that rivals modern astronomical observations. Solar eclipses are associated with the darkening of divine vision and periods when the gods withdraw their protection from earthly rulers. The accurate prediction of these events enabled Mesopotamian rulers to prepare for periods of reduced divine favor and implement alternative governance strategies. The Assyrian prophetic literature from the 8th and 7th centuries BC contains increasingly urgent warnings about the return of ancient powers. The prophecies of Nabureshasar describe visions of gods returning from distant lands who will reclaim their earthly possessions and restore the ancient order. These texts provide specific timelines for divine return, including references to astronomical cycles and political events that serve as countdown markers. The prophecies describe preparation requirements for divine return, including the construction of specific architectural complexes and the preservation of particular ritual knowledge. Neo-Assyrian royal inscriptions document massive construction projects that appear designed to accommodate returning divine beings. The palace complex at Durshirkin included chambers with unusual proportions and acoustic properties that suggest non-human occupants. The mathematical ratios incorporated into these constructions correspond to specifications found in prophetic texts describing divine architectural requirements. Assyrian military texts contain references to weapons and tactics that will be employed during the period of divine return. These descriptions include devices that cast fire from the sky and move without human guidance. The technical specifications provided in these texts suggest advanced military technologies that exceeded contemporary capabilities. Archaeological evidence from Assyrian military sites includes unusual metallurgical remains and construction techniques that may represent attempts to develop the prophesied weapons. Neo-Babylonian prophetic texts from the 6th century BC describe accelerating signs of approaching divine intervention. The Ur prophecy details environmental changes that will precede divine return, including alterations in seasonal patterns, unusual animal behavior, and geological instabilities. The text provides specific measurements and timelines for these phenomena that enable verification against historical and archaeological records. The prophecy describes technological developments that will emerge during the pre-return period, including improvements in metallurgy, astronomy, and engineering, that prepare human civilization for renewed divine contact. Neo-Babylonian administrative texts document significant advances in these fields during the 6th century BC, including the development of new alloy compositions, more accurate astronomical instruments, and innovative construction techniques that correspond to prophetic descriptions. Ritual texts from the Neo-Babylonian period describe elaborate ceremonies designed to prepare for divine return. The Akitu festival underwent significant modifications during this period, with new ritual elements that addressed returning divine beings, rather than absent ones. These ceremonies included specific invocations, architectural arrangements, and offering procedures that supposedly facilitated divine re-entry into earthly affairs. The ritual texts describe purification procedures for temple complexes and cities that must be completed before divine beings can safely resume earthly residence. These procedures include the removal of specific contaminants, the realignment of architectural elements, and the performance of complex ceremonial sequences that restore proper cosmic harmony. The detailed nature of these requirements suggests practical knowledge of divine needs and preferences, rather than symbolic religious practices. Incantation texts from various Mesopotamian sites contain formulas designed to prevent or mitigate divine wrath during periods of return. These incantations acknowledge that divine re-entry into earthly affairs will necessarily involve significant disruptions to existing social and political orders. The texts provide specific verbal formulas, ritual actions, and protective measures that supposedly shield human populations from the destructive aspects of divine intervention. The incantations describe protective barriers that can be established around cities and individuals through proper ritual procedures. These barriers are described as energy fields that deflect divine anger, while allowing beneficial divine influences to pass through. The technical descriptions of these protective systems include specific geometric patterns, material requirements, and timing considerations that suggest sophisticated understanding of divine operational parameters. Persian period texts describe the gradual fulfillment of prophetic warnings, as political and environmental conditions align with ancient predictions. The Cyrus cylinder acknowledges the return of divine favor to Babylon, while referencing specific prophetic texts that predicted Persian rule as a precursor to full divine restoration. The correlation between prophetic predictions and historical events demonstrates the practical accuracy of Mesopotamian prophetic literature, rather than mere religious speculation. Late Babylonian astronomical texts track the completion of celestial cycles described in prophetic literature. These calculations demonstrate that many of the astronomical markers for divine return have been reached, suggesting that the prophesied interventions may be imminent, according to ancient Mesopotamian timelines. The mathematical precision of these calculations enables verification of prophetic accuracy and provides specific dates for anticipated divine activities. The consistency of prophetic warnings across multiple centuries and diverse political contexts suggests these texts preserve genuine knowledge about divine intervention patterns, rather than arbitrary religious beliefs. The detailed technical specifications, accurate astronomical predictions, and verifiable historical correlations indicate that Mesopotamian prophetic literature represents a sophisticated warning system designed to prepare human civilization for the eventual return of the Anunnaki and the restoration of directive Nehuman interaction. The mathematical foundations underlying Sumerian astronomical observations reveal a sophistication that challenges conventional understanding of ancient capabilities. The BASC 60 sexagesimal system, which emerged fully formed in the earliest Sumerian texts, demonstrates mathematical concepts that require abstract thinking far beyond what should have been possible for a supposedly nascent civilization. This numerical framework enabled calculations involving complex fractions, astronomical measurements, and geometric relationships with remarkable precision, forming the backbone of a cosmic timekeeping system that tracks celestial cycles spanning millennia. Archaeological evidence from Nippur reveals mathematical tablets containing calculations that extend thousands of years into both past and future. The Plimpton 322 tablet demonstrates knowledge of Pythagorean relationships and trigonometric functions that predate Greek mathematical discoveries by over a millennium. These calculations weren't theoretical exercises, but practical tools for tracking planetary movements, predicting eclipses, and maintaining calendar systems that synchronize earthly activities with cosmic rhythms. The precision of these mathematical operations suggests access to observational data accumulated over periods far exceeding normal human lifespans. The sexagesimal system's divisibility properties prove particularly suited for astronomical calculations. The number 60 can be divided evenly by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30, enabling precise fractional calculations without the decimal approximations that plagued other ancient mathematical systems. This mathematical framework allowed Sumerian astronomers to calculate planetary positions, eclipse cycles, and seasonal variations with accuracy that wouldn't be surpassed until the development of modern computational methods. Cuneiform tablets from Ur contain ephemeris tables that track Jupiter's position through its 12-year orbital cycle, with mathematical precision, requiring centuries of systematic observation. The calculations account for orbital eccentricity, retrograde motion, and positional variations that can only be detected through long-term systematic recording. The consistency of these observations across multiple sites suggests coordinated astronomical programs that extended throughout Mesopotamian civilization, indicating centralized knowledge systems that transcended local political boundaries. The concept of the Great Year emerges prominently in Mesopotamian astronomical texts as a fundamental organizing principle for understanding cosmic time. This 25,920-year cycle, corresponding to the complete precession of Earth's rotational axis, appears in Sumerian calculations with mathematical accuracy that requires sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. The detection of precession necessitates precise measurement of stellar positions over centuries, yet Sumerian texts describe this phenomenon as established knowledge rather than recent discovery. Babylonian astronomical texts divide the Great Year into 12 ages of 2,160 years each, corresponding to the precession through each zodiacal constellation. These calculations demonstrate understanding that the spring equinox point shifts approximately 1 degree every 72 years, a measurement that modern astronomy confirms as remarkably accurate. The systematic tracking of this slow celestial motion required institutional continuity spanning multiple generations and suggests astronomical programs that operated independently of political changes and social upheavals. The Mulopin tablets describe 3 celestial pathways corresponding to the domains of Anu, Enlil, and E, each containing specific constellations and associated divine influences. These pathways divide the sky into precise geometric sections that enable accurate tracking of planetary movements and stellar positions throughout the year. The mathematical relationships between these celestial zones demonstrate sophisticated understanding of spherical geometry and coordinate systems that anticipate later Greek astronomical developments. Astronomical observations recorded in the Mulopin series include detailed descriptions of heliacal risings and settings for numerous stars and constellations. These observations require precise timing and systematic recording over extended periods to establish reliable patterns. The accuracy of these stellar calendars enabled Mesopotamian astronomers to predict seasonal changes, agricultural timing, and religious festivals with remarkable precision, maintaining social coordination through astronomical knowledge. The tablets describe Nibiru as following a highly elliptical orbit that brings it into the inner solar system every 3,600 years. The mathematical calculations describing this orbit demonstrate understanding of elliptical mechanics and gravitational influences that wouldn't be formalized in European astronomy until Kepler's work in the 17th century. The precision of these orbital calculations suggests either direct observation of this celestial body or access to advanced mathematical models that could predict its movements. Ziggurats throughout Mesopotamia demonstrate sophisticated astronomical alignments that transform these monuments into massive observational instruments. The Great Ziggurat of Ur incorporates precise angular measurements that align with significant celestial events, including solstices, equinoxes, and planetary conjunctions. Archaeological surveys show that the monument's corners line up with the main compass directions, accurate to within tiny fractions of a degree, which would require measuring methods better than what most ancient people are thought to have had. The step design of ziggurats makes several viewing levels at different heights, allowing people to track different sky events at the same time. The math connections between step heights, platform sizes, and viewing angles show a strong understanding of how to measure and observe using geometry. These calculations include the bending of light in the air, the way the horizon changes what you can see, and how what is visible in the sky changes by season, showing advanced knowledge of practical astronomy. Excavations at the Anu Ziggurat in Uruk show underground rooms that held astronomical tools and calculation tablets. These rooms include carefully linear viewing shafts that frame specific parts of the sky during important astronomical events. The geometric connections between these viewing angles and the ziggurat's whole design suggest the entire structure worked like a three-dimensional astronomical calculator, allowing complex observations and calculations through the building's design. The ziggurat of Babylon included sound features that made certain sound frequencies louder while blocking others. Archaeological analysis shows that the structure's inner rooms vibrate at frequencies that match math ratios found in astronomical calculations. These sound features suggest the monument had more than one purpose, combining sky observation with sound-based communication systems that may have helped long-distance coordination between different observation sites. Mesopotamian calendar systems show amazing skill in matching lunar months with solar years, while staying in sync with planetary cycles. The standard 360-day year needed complex intercalation procedures to match the real solar year of 365.25 days. Administrative text from different time periods describe the math steps used to keep the calendar accurate over long periods, including adding extra months and changing festival dates to keep them lined up with the seasons. The Assyrian calendar used a 19-year cycle that matched lunar and solar observations with great precision. This system required adding 7 extra months during each 19-year period, keeping calendar accuracy within hours over long periods. The math calculations needed for this system show a strong understanding of astronomical cycles and their math relationships. Neo-Babylonian astronomical texts describe calendar changes that account for the slow shift in seasonal timing caused by precession. These calculations show awareness that calendars must sometimes be changed to stay accurate over centuries. The math steps for these changes require understanding precession rates and how they affect seasonal observations, showing astronomical knowledge far beyond immediate practical needs. Religious festivals across Mesopotamia were set according to specific astronomical events that needed precise calculation and observation. The Akitu festival in Babylon was scheduled to match the spring equinox and specific planetary patterns that happened at predictable times. Administrative texts describe the complex steps needed to choose the correct festival timing, including watching multiple sky events and doing math calculations that predicted astronomical events months ahead of time. The link between festival timing and astronomical events suggests these celebrations had practical purposes in keeping astronomical knowledge and coordinating observation work throughout Mesopotamian civilization. Festival procedures included ritual observations of specific sky events, making sure astronomical knowledge stayed connected to religious and social practices. These coordinated observations allowed accurate astronomical records to be kept across many generations and different places. Eclipse prediction systems created by Mesopotamian astronomers became very accurate through math analysis of repeating patterns. The Saros cycle of 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours allowed predictions of lunar eclipses with precision that often went beyond what people could observe directly. Babylonian eclipse records show successful predictions stretching decades into the future, showing advanced math models that could handle orbital changes and observation uncertainty. Solar eclipse predictions required even more complex math, because total eclipses can only be seen in narrow areas. Mesopotamian texts describe successful predictions of solar eclipses visible from specific cities, showing math models that included Earth's rotation, orbital motion, and geographic coordinates. The accuracy of these predictions shows astronomical abilities that came close to modern computing standards. Planet observation records from Neo-Babylonian archives track the movements of all visible planets with math precision that allowed accurate prediction of future positions. These calculations include orbital eccentricity, retrograde motion, and synodic periods through math models that require a strong understanding of celestial mechanics. The consistency of these observations across many centuries shows organized astronomy programs that stayed steady despite political changes and social upheavals. Venus observations written in Babylonian texts show understanding of the planet's two appearances as the morning and evening star, including accurate calculations of superior and inferior conjunctions. These observations required careful tracking across many synodic cycles and math analysis to find reliable patterns. The precision of Venus predictions allowed accurate forecasts of when the planet would be visible and how its brightness would change, supporting both practical navigation and religious calendar systems. The connection between astronomical knowledge and building design appears across Mesopotamian construction projects. Temple directions consistently line up with specific sky events, including star risings, planetary conjunctions, and seasonal solar positions. The math precision of these alignments required advanced surveying methods and astronomical calculations that show strong understanding of both observational astronomy and practical engineering. Mesopotamian astronomical achievements represent a connected system of math knowledge, observation methods, and practical uses that allowed accurate tracking of sky events across thousands of years. The complexity of these systems suggests access to advanced math ideas and observation data that required organized continuity over much longer periods than common history models allow. The integration of astronomy with religious, architectural, and administrative systems shows that watching the sky was a key organizing principle for Mesopotamian civilization, allowing coordination of complex social activities through precise understanding of cosmic rhythms and math relationships. The math precision built into Mesopotamian astronomy provides only one layer of evidence supporting claims of an advanced pre-flood civilization. Physical archaeological discoveries across the region show technological abilities that challenge common timelines of human development. While underwater exploration in the Persian Gulf has found settlement patterns older than known civilizations by thousands of years. These discoveries, along with genetic and language evidence, suggest fast technology transfers and population movements that match ancient written accounts of divine intervention very well. Metallurgical analysis of artifacts found in the deepest layers of Eridu shows alloy mixtures that demonstrate strong understanding of metal properties and specialized smelting methods. Bronze tools from layers dated to about 4500 BC contain precise copper-tin ratios chosen for specific uses, with weapons showing different metalworking traits than farming tools. The tin levels in these early bronzes range from 8 to 12%, showing controlled smelting that could hit exact targets instead of random mixing of available metals. Lab analysis of these bronze artifacts shows trace elements, including arsenic, antimony, and silver, in amounts that suggest they were added on purpose, rather than naturally present or contamination. The arsenic level, usually from 1 to 3%, adds hardness and resistance to corrosion that ancient metalworkers would have noticed right away. However, controlling arsenic so precisely required understanding its toxic effects and advanced methods for managing dangerous smelting processes that should not have been available to early Bronze Age populations. Excavations at Tel Salem have found ceramic kilns able to reach temperatures above 1,200 degrees centigrade, far hotter than needed for normal pottery. These kilns include advanced furring chamber designs with controlled airflow systems that allow precise temperature control. The math precision of the airflow calculations, shown in the chamber shapes and vent placement, demonstrates advanced understanding of thermodynamics and combustion engineering that appears thousands of years before later metallurgy developments. The ceramic products from these high-temperature kilns include vessels with wall thicknesses even within millimeters, and surface finishes that require specialized glazing methods. Chemical analysis shows glazes containing lead, tin, and copper compounds in precise ratios that create specific colors and surface qualities. The consistency of these glaze formulas across many batches shows standardized recipes and quality control methods, suggesting organized industrial production instead of experimental craftwork. Stone-cutting methods seen at early Mesopotamian sites show precision beyond what known ancient tools could do. Limestone blocks at the base levels of Uruk temples show cut surfaces with tolerances measured in tiny fractions of a millimeter, made using cutting methods that left tool marks not consistent with copper or bronze tools. Microscopic analysis of these cut surfaces shows parallel lines with spacing and depth, suggesting powered cutting tools rather than hand methods. The precision the stone fitting in base courses at major temple sites requires measuring accuracy close to modern building standards. Blocks weighing several tons fit together with gaps smaller than a sheet of paper, done without mortar or binding materials. The math needed for this precision includes adjusting for thermal expansion, settling, and load distribution, showing advanced engineering knowledge used for real construction problems. Underground rooms found beneath the Eridu temple complex have building features suggesting they were not for living. These rooms include precisely machined stone surfaces with sound properties that make certain frequencies louder while reducing others. The geometric connections between room sizes, ceiling heights, and wall angles create resonance patterns that match math ratios found in later music theory, suggesting these spaces had special sound purposes that required advanced understanding of how sound moves. Drainage systems across early Mesopotamian settlements include hydraulic engineering principles that appear thousands of years before later Roman developments. Underground aqueducts at Jersu include precisely calculated slopes that keep water flowing over distances longer than 10 kilometers, while accounting for seasonal changes in water levels. The math precision of these slope calculations required surveying methods and engineering knowledge beyond normal ancient abilities. The water systems include pressure regulation devices and flow control parts, showing understanding of fluid dynamics. Bronze fittings found from these systems show machining marks consistent with lathe work, showing rotating cutting methods that were not supposed to appear until much later. The precision of these fittings allows tight seals and controlled water flow that keeps systems working well over long periods. Underwater archaeological surveys in the Persian Gulf during the 1990s revealed large settlement remains submerged under 60 to 120 feet of water. These sites, dated to before 8000 BC based on organic material testing, contain building foundations and artifact clusters showing large permanent settlements. The spread pattern of these underwater sites suggests planned city building across areas covering hundreds of square kilometers, showing population density and organization beyond known prehistoric standards. Sonar mapping of the Persian Gulf seafloor shows geometric patterns consistent with farm field systems, including irrigation channels and field borders across submerged coastal plains. These field systems show planned land use needing surveying methods and farming knowledge, able to support large settled populations. The math precision of field layouts and irrigation networks suggests centralized planning and engineering abilities that challenge common ideas about prehistoric societies. Artifacts recovered from underwater sites include ceramic vessels with technology similar to early Mesopotamian pottery, but older than known Mesopotamian settlements by thousands of years. These ceramics show the same firing methods, decorative styles, and practical designs, suggesting direct technological continuity between submerged pre-flood settlements and later Mesopotamian civilizations. The consistency of these technological traditions across this time gap suggests special knowledge was preserved by groups that survived flooding events. Genetic analysis of skeletal remains from early Mesopotamian sites shows population traits that differ greatly from nearby regional groups. DNA taken from burials at Ur and Uruk shows genetic markers that do not clearly match known migration patterns from nearby areas. These genetic signatures include haplogroups that appear suddenly in the archaeological record without clear ancestor populations in nearby regions, suggesting either fast migration from far away or genetic influences that current methods cannot fully explain. The genetic data shows population bottlenecks, followed by fast growth phases that match periods of technological advancement described in ancient texts. Mitochondrial DNA analysis shows reduced genetic diversity, followed by sudden population increases that match the rise of major city centers. These patterns suggest either large immigration events or population recoveries that allowed rapid cultural development in fairly short time spans. Linguistic analysis of early Sumerian texts shows words and grammar that do not clearly come from known language families in the region. The Sumerian language appears in writing with no clear development stages, already containing complex grammar ideas and technical terms that suggest fully formed intellectual traditions, rather than a new communication system. The math and astronomy vocabulary in early Sumerian texts includes precise technical terms that show advanced ways of thinking for describing complex things. Comparative language studies show Sumerian influence on languages across the ancient Near East, including technical words about metallurgy, astronomy, and engineering that appear in many unrelated language families. These borrowed words follow geographic patterns, suggesting systematic spread of specialized knowledge from Mesopotamian centers to nearby peoples. The consistency of technical terms across many languages suggests standardized education systems that passed on precise knowledge, rather than rough ideas. Geological evidence from Mesopotamian river systems shows multiple catastrophic floods that match historical accounts kept in ancient texts. Sediment testing from core samples across the Tigris-Euphrates basin shows flood deposits far beyond normal seasonal flooding by huge amounts. These flood layers include marine sediments and organic material showing temporary connections between rivers and sea environments, supporting written accounts of waters covering the land like a garment. The geological record shows these catastrophic floods happen during times of fast climate change, affecting global weather patterns. Ice core data from Greenland and Antarctica shows temperature shifts and changes in air composition that match Mesopotamian flood deposits. These climate events created conditions for extreme rain and glacial melting that could explain the scale of flooding described in ancient accounts. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials and flood deposits provides timelines that match written accounts of divine departure and civilizational collapse. The most important flood layers date to about 2900 to 2700 BC, matching the period when Sumerian texts described major cities being abandoned and the cessation of direct divine involvement in human affairs. The match between geological evidence and written accounts suggests these ancient records kept accurate history about real environmental disasters. Archaeological evidence from post-flood rebuilding phases shows technology breaks that support written accounts of knowledge being saved and restored. Building methods, metalworking, and art styles show sudden improvements suggesting access to preserved knowledge instead of slow redevelopment. These technology resurgences appear at many sites at the same time, suggesting coordinated restoration, needing centralized knowledge sources and organized distribution networks. Artifact collections from restoration sites include tools showing abilities beyond those of the period just before. Metallurgical analysis shows alloy mixtures and making methods that are improvements over pre-flood technology, suggesting continued development during the flood period or access to knowledge sources not affected by the disasters. The sophistication of these post-flood technologies suggests advanced knowledge survived environmental disasters through preservation systems that kept technical information across the disruption period. Chemical analysis of building materials from rebuilding sites shows concrete-like substances using volcanic ash and mineral additives in ratios, creating exceptional durability and weather resistance. These materials show understanding of chemical reactions and material properties that appear thousands of years before later Roman concrete. The consistency of these formulas across many sites suggests standardized recipes and quality control methods, pointing to centralized technical knowledge and organized distribution networks. The archaeological evidence from Mesopotamian sites shows a connected picture of technological abilities beyond what is usually expected for prehistoric and early historic periods. The precision of metalworking, the sophistication of engineering solutions, and the math accuracy of construction projects suggest access to advanced knowledge systems requiring organized continuity and systematic preservation. The connection between archaeological discoveries and ancient written accounts suggests these civilizations had technological abilities that were later lost during political collapse and environmental catastrophe, and only partly restored through preserved knowledge sources that kept advanced technical information across long periods of social disruption. The joining of archaeological evidence with ancient texts has created strong support for rethinking Mesopotamian history, with Zacharias Sitchin's work being one of the most influential and controversial attempts to connect ancient sources with modern understanding. Sitchin's translations of Sumerian and Akkadian cuneiform tablets, beginning with the 12th planet in 1976, proposed that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings who genetically modified early humans and established civilization on Earth. His interpretation started decades of academic debate and popular interest, greatly changing how alternative researchers approach ancient Mesopotamian texts. Sitchin's method focused on direct translation of cuneiform tablets, especially creation myths, king lists, and astronomy texts that mainstream scholars usually treated as purely mythological. His analysis of the Sumerian word Anunnaki stressed the literal meaning those who from heaven to earth came, arguing that ancient scribes recorded real historical events rather than symbolic religious stories. This approach challenged normal archaeology by treating ancient texts as historical documents that preserved accurate information about advanced beings with technology far beyond that of humans at the time. The language foundation of Sitchin's work depended heavily on his interpretation of Sumerian astronomy terms, especially references to celestial bodies and cosmic events. His analysis of the Enuma Elish creation epic focused on passages describing planet formation and orbital mechanics, arguing that ancient Mesopotamians had detailed knowledge of solar system dynamics that could only have come from observation from space or teaching by beings with advanced astronomy. Sitchin's translation of references to Nibiru as a planet with a 3,600-year elliptical orbit became central to his theory of repeating extraterrestrial visits. Academic responses to Sitchin's translations have been strongly critical, with Assyriologists and Sumerologists pointing to many language mistakes and method problems in his work. Dr. Michael Hieser, a scholar of ancient Near Eastern languages, did detailed checks of Sitchin's translations and found repeated misreadings of cuneiform signs, incorrect grammar interpretations, and selective quoting that supported planned conclusions while ignoring opposing evidence. Hieser's critiques showed that many of Sitchin's key translations contain basic errors in understanding Sumerian and Akkadian grammar and vocabulary. Academic criticism goes beyond language issues to method issues in how Sitchin used ancient texts. Traditional Assyriologists stress understanding ancient writing within cultural and historical context, arguing that myths serve social and religious purposes that do not necessarily describe literal history. Dr. Stephanie Dawley of Oxford University noted that Sitchin's interpretations ignored the writing rules and symbolic frameworks of Mesopotamian literature, treating metaphor as factual description, without considering the cultural purposes of the texts. Professional translators also criticized Sitchin's handling of unclear or damaged cuneiform passages, where missing signs require careful rebuilding based on context and parallel texts. Dr. Irving Finkel of the British Museum showed that Sitchin often filled gaps in damaged tablets with guesses that supported his extraterrestrial idea, instead of using established scholarly methods for rebuilding incomplete texts. These method problems have led mainstream scholars to dismiss Sitchin's work as pseudoscientific, rather than real historical research. However, some parts of Sitchin's observations about Mesopotamian technological abilities have gained unexpected support from recent archaeological finds. His focus on early Sumerian sophistication, especially in metallurgy, astronomy, and engineering, matches physical evidence that challenges traditional models of slow cultural development. While scholars reject his extraterrestrial explanations, the technological puzzles he highlighted have led to renewed study of where advanced knowledge in ancient Mesopotamia came from. The debate over Sitchin's work has shown deeper method divisions in ancient Near Eastern studies about how texts and archaeology relate. Traditional scholarship stresses careful language analysis and cultural context, while alternative researchers argue for more literal reading of ancient accounts describing technology and historical events. This method divide reflects bigger questions about how modern scholarship should treat ancient claims that seem beyond known historical abilities. Modern Assyriologists have developed more advanced ways to understand how Mesopotamian myth connects to historical reality. Dr. Tzfaya Bush's work on Mesopotamian creation literature shows how ancient texts could keep real historical memories while placing them inside symbolic and ritual frameworks serving cultural purposes. This approach suggests ancient narratives may include factual cores changed through literary and religious processes, needing careful study to separate history from myth additions. The ancient astronaut idea, popularized by Sitchin and authors like Erich von Däniken, has produced large academic literature, studying the psychological and cultural reasons these theories appeal to modern audiences. Dr. Garrett Fagan's research on pseudoarchaeology shows that alternative theories often reflect modern worries about technology change and cultural identity, more than real historical insight. This sociological view suggests extraterrestrial explanations for ancient achievements may serve modern psychological needs, rather than accurately explaining archaeological evidence. Archaeological methods for testing alternative history theories have become more advanced, using improved dating, materials testing, and comparisons to check or reject specific claims about ancient technology. Recent digs at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey have found monumental architecture dating to about 9500 BC, showing advanced planning and building by hunter-gatherer groups thought to be primitive. These finds support arguments that advanced knowledge and organization existed much earlier than usual models suggest, though they do not necessarily prove extraterrestrial explanations. Comparative mythology studies have found strong parallels between Mesopotamian stories of divine intervention and similar stories worldwide, suggesting either shared historical experiences or universal patterns in how humans tell stories. Dr. David Leeming's analysis of world myths shows stories of gods coming down from heaven to establish civilization appear in many unrelated cultures across continents and time periods. These parallels raise important questions about whether such stories preserve memories of real events or represent archetypal patterns in human thinking. Flood stories are especially strong examples of cross-cultural parallels that may point to shared historical experiences. Stories of catastrophic floods destroying civilizations and needing divine intervention to preserve human knowledge appear in Mesopotamian, Indian, Chinese, Mesoamerican, and North American traditions, with remarkable similarity in their basic structure. While details change with local culture, the shared core elements of divine warning, technology preservation, and civilization renewal suggest either shared history or extremely persistent cultural memory. Indian Sanskrit texts, especially the Vedic literature and Puranas, describe advanced beings called devas with technological abilities very similar to those linked to the Mesopotamian Anunnaki. The Vimana texts describe flying vehicles with advanced propulsion systems and weapons that match descriptions of divine technology in Mesopotamian writing. Dr. Richard Thompson's analysis of Sanskrit astronomy texts shows math knowledge and observation abilities beyond usual expectations for ancient India, suggesting access to advanced knowledge. Sources similar to those seen in Mesopotamian texts. Chinese historical records keep accounts of divine emperors coming down from heaven to establish civilization and teach basic technologies. The Yellow Emperor and other legendary rulers are credited with introducing metallurgy, agriculture, writing, and astronomical observation to ancient China. These stories follow patterns very similar to Mesopotamian accounts of divine intervention, including details about transferring technology, knowledge, and setting up government systems under divine guidance. Mesoamerican civilizations develop separately from Old World influences yet produce creation myths and historical accounts, with striking parallels to Mesopotamian narratives. The Popol Vuh describes gods creating humans after several failed tries, and establishing civilization through direct teaching of key technologies. Quetzalcoatl and other Mesoamerican deities are shown as culture bearers who come from distant realms to teach astronomy, agriculture, and craftsmanship before leaving with promises to return. The math precision of Mayan astronomy and the sophistication of their engineering suggest access to advanced knowledge sources similar to those seen in Mesopotamia. North American indigenous traditions keep detailed stories of star people coming down from the sky to interact with humans and establish cultural traditions. Hopi prophecies describe the return of star beings who will restore proper relationships between humans and cosmic order. Cherokee traditions include accounts of advanced beings who taught key technologies and established sacred sites, aligned with astronomical events. The consistency of these traditions across many tribal groups suggests either shared historical experiences or very persistent cultural memory, preserving accurate information across thousands of years. Recent archaeological finds have added new evidence for judging alternative theories about ancient technology and cultural contact. Underwater archaeology has found large settlement remains submerged by postglacial sea level rise, showing advanced urban planning and technology among groups thought to be primitive. The discovery of the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device that calculated planetary positions with impressive precision, shows that advanced mechanical knowledge existed in the ancient world, even when conventional models say it should not have. Genetic studies of ancient populations have revealed migration and movement patterns, supporting some parts of alternative theories, while contradicting others. DNA analysis of early Mesopotamian populations shows genetic influence from far regions, suggesting long-distance contact and movement, when traditional models suggest isolated development. However, these genetic studies have found no evidence of non-human genetic influence that would support extraterrestrial intervention theories. Astronomy analysis of ancient sites has confirmed the advanced knowledge of celestial mechanics shown in archaeological alignments and written references. The precision of alignments at sites like Stonehenge, the Egyptian pyramids, and Mesopotamian ziggurats shows understanding of precession, planetary cycles, and star movements, needing centuries of careful observation and math analysis. These findings support the idea that ancient civilizations had advanced astronomical knowledge, while not necessarily proving extraterrestrial explanations for how they got it. Technology testing of ancient artifacts continues to show manufacturing abilities challenging common views of historical development. Studies of Damascus steel have found molecular structures not fully understood until modern materials science, yet ancient metalworkers achieved these properties through methods still partly mysterious. In the same way, analysis of Roman concrete shows chemical makeup and structural properties that outperform many modern building materials in durability and performance. The debate over alternative history theories has led to new methods aiming to bridge the gap between mainstream scholarship and alternative research. Cooperation among archaeologists, linguists, astronomers, and materials scientists has created chances for more complete evaluation of ancient technology and achievements. These cooperative approaches have confirmed many parts of ancient sophistication while offering natural explanations for things alternative theories credit to extraterrestrials. Modern rechecking of ancient texts using better translation methods and improved historical understanding has revealed new layers of meaning in Mesopotamian literature missed by earlier scholarship. Digital humanities projects allow systematic study of thousands of cuneiform tablets, finding patterns and connections not visible through older methods. These computer-based approaches have identified astronomy knowledge, math ideas, and technology descriptions showing greater sophistication than once recognized, while keeping scholarly accuracy in translation and interpretation. The ongoing improvement of archaeological methods keeps adding new data relevant to judging alternative history theories. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite images, and advanced dating have found unknown sites and cultural links that expand understanding of ancient abilities in contact networks. These discoveries consistently show ancient civilizations were more advanced and connected than traditional models said, while giving natural explanations for achievements alternative theories attribute to extraterrestrial influence. Method advances in analyzing ancient texts have revealed increasingly specific links between modern astronomical events and Mesopotamian prophetic literature, suggesting many sky markers described in cuneiform tablets are now appearing according to ancient calculations. Recent observations of planetary alignments, star events, and deep space discoveries match predictions contained in Neo-Babylonian ephemeris tables and prophetic texts from the first millennium BC. The idea of Planet 9, a theoretical large object in the outer solar system, has revived academic interest in ancient Mesopotamian references to Nibiru and its described orbit. Modern calculations suggest this distant planet has a highly elliptical orbit that brings it into the inner solar system about every 3,600 years, matching the orbital period described in Sumerian astronomy. Texts. Dr. Konstantin Batigin's research at Caltech shows gravitational effects on outer solar system objects require a planet about 10 times Earth's mass in a distant elliptical orbit, characteristics matching ancient descriptions of Nibiru's size and orbital mechanics. Infrared surveys by the Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer have found unusual heat signals in the outer solar system, suggesting large bodies not yet directly seen by normal telescopes. These infrared findings occur in parts of space that match ancient Mesopotamian star charts describing Nibiru's path as it approaches the inner solar system. The math precision of these matches suggests either extraordinary coincidence or real astronomy knowledge preserved in ancient texts. Recent observations of comet behavior and asteroid paths show disturbances consistent with gravitational pull from an undiscovered massive object in the outer solar system. The orbit changes affecting dozens of trans-Neptunian objects follow patterns suggesting a shared gravitational influence from a source matching ancient descriptions of Nibiru. Dr. Chad Trujillo's analysis of extreme trans-Neptunian objects shows clustering in orbit directions, suggesting gravitational shepherding by a large distant planet, with an orbital period measured in thousands of years rather than hundreds. Modern space exploration has revealed technology achievements that strangely resemble descriptions of divine abilities in ancient Mesopotamian texts. The development of autonomous spacecraft, artificial intelligence, and genetic engineering shows humans gaining abilities ancient texts credited only to the Anunnaki. The fast pace of these developments, especially in biotechnology and space travel, follows timelines that match prophetic descriptions of knowledge restoration before divine return. The Human Genome Project and later genetic engineering advances allow precise changes to DNA sequences, similar to ancient accounts of divine beings creating and modifying human genetics. CRISPR gene editing allows targeted genetic changes matching descriptions in texts like the Atrahasis epic, where divine beings are described as creating humans through deliberate genetic manipulation. Ethical debates about human genetic enhancement mirror ancient accounts of divine disagreements about how far human abilities and knowledge should go. Artificial intelligence development has reached abilities that match ancient descriptions of divine all-knowing and computing power. Modern AI can process huge amounts of information, predict future events from complex data, and make decisions beyond normal human thinking. These achievements match Mesopotamian accounts of divine beings who knew past and future events, and could instantly calculate complex astronomical and math relationships. Space exploration technology has developed propulsion and navigation, able to travel across the solar system, approaching the interplanetary travel abilities attributed to the Anunnaki in ancient texts. The International Space Station is humanity's first permanent off-world habitat. While Mars missions show technology that could build human settlements on other planets, these achievements are early steps toward the interplanetary civilization ancient texts describe as typical of divine beings. Geopolitical developments in the Middle East have followed patterns that match prophetic descriptions in Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian texts. The restoration of Israel as a nation-state in 1948, continuing conflict focused on ancient Mesopotamian lands, and Iraq becoming a center for international intervention, match prophetic timelines describing political upheavals before divine return. The math precision of these matches suggests either extraordinary coincidence or real prophetic knowledge preserved in ancient sources. Archaeological discoveries in Iraq and Syria have increased sharply since the early 21st century, revealing unknown sites and artifacts adding evidence for advanced ancient civilizations. Excavations at sites like Tel Brak have uncovered urban settlements with advanced defenses and administrative centers that predate known Mesopotamian cities by several centuries. These discoveries support ancient accounts of large pre-flood civilizations, while giving physical evidence of the technological abilities described in Sumerian texts. The deliberate destruction of archaeological sites by extremist groups has followed patterns matching ancient prophetic descriptions of knowledge hiding and preservation during political upheaval. The organized targeting of museums, libraries, and archaeological sites in Iraq and Syria mirrors ancient accounts of divine knowledge being hidden or protected during social collapse. The international response, including digital preservation and emergency archaeology, parallels ancient descriptions of knowledge preservation systems that kept important information across political disruption. Modern climate change and environmental instability show patterns matching ancient prophetic descriptions of global upheavals before divine intervention. Rising seas, extreme weather, and ecological disruption follow paths described in Mesopotamian texts as signs of approaching cosmic realignment. Reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change document environmental changes matching ancient descriptions of disasters, linked with divine return periods. Ocean acidification and marine ecosystem collapse match ancient descriptions of waters becoming bitter and marine life dying during cosmic upheaval. Math models predicting future climate scenarios match ancient calculations describing environmental changes during specific astronomical configurations. These matches suggest either remarkable ancient environmental insight or real prophetic knowledge about long-term ecological cycles. Farming challenges and food security issues have appeared in patterns matching ancient prophetic descriptions of agricultural disruption before divine intervention. Crop failures, soil damage, and water shortages affect areas matching ancient Mesopotamian territories and their traditional farming zones. The development of genetically modified crops and artificial food technologies represents human attempts to solve farming problems using methods similar to ancient accounts of divine intervention in agriculture. Modern interpretations of Sumerian time cycles show multiple ancient systems, pointing to the early 21st century as a major transition time. The completion of various astronomical cycles in Mesopotamian texts, including precession-based calculations and planetary orbital periods, cluster around modern dates with math precision suggesting deliberate timing, not random coincidence. Dr. John Major Jenkins' analysis of Mayan and Mesopotamian calendar systems shows strong synchronization between independent ancient timekeeping systems that both mark the current period as astronomically important. The Sumerian Sar, a 3,600-year cycle linked to Nibiru's orbit, places the current era at the completion of multiple Sar cycles since Sumerian civilization began. Calculations based on ancient Mesopotamian chronologies suggest 2012 to 2024 is a convergence point for several cycles, including precession-based stages, planetary return cycles, and calendar computations that ancient texts connect with divine intervention periods. Neo-Babylonian astronomy texts contain ephemeris calculations that extend into modern times with impressive accuracy, predicting planet positions and sky events confirmed by modern observations. These ancient calculations show math sophistication allowing accurate predictions across thousands of years, while marking specific EARLY 21st century dates as astronomically important by ancient Mesopotamian standards. Modern space observation technology has found cosmic events matching ancient descriptions of celestial signs before divine return. The detection of gravitational waves, observations of black hole mergers, and discoveries of possibly habitable exoplanets show cosmic activity ancient texts describe as happening during divine intervention periods. The math precision of these cosmic events matches ancient calculations describing sky signs that announce major changes in divine-human relationships. Recent findings of possibly artificial structures in deep space, including unusual star-dimming patterns and geometric arrangements of celestial objects, have led scientists to speculate about extraterrestrial intelligence, similar to ancient accounts of divine beings across the cosmos. The tabby star phenomenon, with irregular dimming suggesting huge artificial structures, shows cosmic engineering matching ancient descriptions of divine projects on stellar scales. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence has gained technology able to detect artificial signals and structures across interstellar distances. Radio telescope arrays like the Very Large Array and space observatories have sensitivity that could detect technological signs from civilizations with abilities like those credited to the Anunnaki. The math frameworks used in CD research use signal processing methods that could identify the kind of advanced communication described in Mesopotamian accounts of divine-human interaction. Modern work in quantum physics and consciousness research has found phenomena similar to ancient descriptions of divine abilities in non-physical realms. Quantum entanglement, non-local effects, and consciousness matter interactions show parts of reality matching ancient accounts of divine beings, acting through non-physical mechanisms, and being present in multiple places at once. These scientific findings offer possible explanations for divine abilities described in ancient texts without needing supernatural explanations. Archaeological preservation work has revealed ancient sites and artifacts showing technology beyond common historical expectations. Ground-penetrating radar at major Mesopotamian sites has found underground structures and rooms still unexplored, possibly holding preserved knowledge and technologies described in ancient texts. The math precision of these underground complexes suggests planned construction for long-term preservation of important materials and information. Digital reconstruction allows virtual study of ancient sites and artifacts, revealing overlooked technological sophistication. 3D modeling of Mesopotamian architecture has shown sound properties, astronomical alignments, and engineering principles, showing advanced knowledge in many scientific fields. These digital studies give new evidence for technological abilities described in ancient texts, while allowing detailed study of places that are physically inaccessible because of political instability. The convergence of modern events with ancient predictions suggests the current time is a key transition point in the cycles described in Mesopotamian prophecy. The math precision of these matches, along with new technology humans have achieved, suggests the conditions described for divine return may be nearing fulfillment. Whether these matches mean real prophecy, extraordinary coincidence, or the natural result of human technology, reaching levels similar to ancient descriptions of divine abilities, remains an open question likely answered through continued watching of sky events and technology changes in the coming decades. Systematic study of Mesopotamian texts, archaeology, and modern events shows a connected pattern of cyclical divine intervention, shaping human civilization through recorded history. The technologies credited to the Anunnaki match technologies humans are now developing, while sky events described and prophecy match modern observation and calculation. The convergence of these lines of evidence suggests the ancient warnings in Mesopotamian literature may represent real knowledge about cosmic cycles and divine intervention patterns, still affecting human development and planetary events. As humans approach technology like what ancient texts credit to divine beings, the question of whether this is independent human achievement or the fulfillment of ancient prophetic cycles becomes increasingly important for understanding both our past and our future as a civilization.